Welcome to Cody in the Cinema. Today I'm reviewing The Whole Town's Talking, a rare John Ford comedy starring Edward G. Robinson spoofing himself. And if you know your movie history, you'll know that in the 1930s, Edward Robinson could not break out of that tough guy gangster role. And so why not throw him in a movie where he's both a mild, meek, easygoing, timid character, and a psychopath gangster. That's exactly what John Ford did in a movie that works pretty well, more so as a gangster movie than a screwball, but it's kind of an entertaining movie. So I need to talk about my bias here for a second. I'm not the biggest screwball comedy fan in general. I'm trying to warm up to them, and that's one of the reasons I watched this movie, and the other was because I love John Ford as a director. But this movie, you have Edward Robinson working a little desk job, and he's late for work, causes some issues. Another person who's late for work is Jean Arthur's character, who, Jean Arthur's really funny, and she's really sassy and cool, and she has a lot of confidence. Those 1930s actresses and their confidence, I love it. It could be like a whole genre. Confident 1930s actresses who are awesome. And I admire them every time I see them in these sorts of roles. And at some point, this character, Arthur, Edward Robinson's character, actually is mistaken for this killer. This Mannion is his name. And so Edward Robinson has to play both characters. Sometimes side by side with a clever use of special effects. I don't know how they did that, but I didn't notice it really. Good, solid 1930s effects. I don't know if that has to do with the print, some magic there. I watched it on the Criterion channel, but it works. And I got to tell you, it's pretty fast paced. It's an hour and a half. It doesn't drag too much in most of the parts. I will say that when you're watching characters that aren't Jean Arthur or Edward Robinson, a lot of the time you get pure stale cardboard characters, as you often do in screwballs, and they're not ever really interesting. They just exist as set pieces. And so the movie is all in on these two characters, and especially on Edward Robinson and the directing of John Ford. It doesn't have a lot of other places to go. It's funny for the first 15, 20 minutes, and then it's not as funny after that. So the movie kind of changes genres, and I won't say how. Don't expect an actual real comedy out of this. I mean, there are some really funny moments, especially in the beginning, but for the most part, it's more of a gangster light movie, if you will. There are a few good spoof scenes, so that don't have to do with the actor making fun of himself. So one of them makes fun of corporate ladder climbing culture and the idea that the boss man is this hard worker who earned his way to the top. This movie is having none of that. The boss is kind of a lazy idiot who doesn't do anything, who actually just exists because of the power of the workers that keep him there. I thought that was kind of an interesting concept. There's also, and this is kind of, I don't know, sometimes with John Ford, I don't know how much he means ideas that come across on the screen, and there's this idea that maybe the police are also completely incompetent idiots who can't protect anyone in the film. And I don't know if that's trying to poke fun at the concept of policing as satire in that way, or I don't know if that's just supposed to be comedy. I can't really tell. And whenever you get into serious subject matter, sometimes it's nice to have that obvious line as to whether or not it's satire. It's just supposed to be funny, kind of goofy, no real meaning to it. I don't know. Who knows? I know Charlie Chaplin got into that territory sometimes, especially with a movie like The Kid. So it can be a little bit unclear on the messaging, but overall, when you look at the performance, I mean, Edward Robinson in this movie, he's like really, like, you get so much sympathy. Like you're watching this character and you feel a genuine pity for him as the movie goes along. Like you're really rooting for him. And I don't know that in the hands of a lesser director, you would have that much of an emotional investment in the title character, especially for a movie like this, with this ridiculous of a plot, where he's mixed up with like the bad guy, which is very convincing, by the way. Like you kind of believe what all the characters believe, which is really crazy. And then Edward Robinson also plays a really good Mannion. I almost called him Minion because Mannion's probably supposed to sound like Minion. But he's pretty terrifying. There's a scene where they're both on screen. Like the first time they're both on screen and you see like Edward Robinson be the other guy and then he be the bad guy, it kind of gives you that Peter Sellers vibe in Dr. Strangelove. Not as substantial of a movie. Don't get me wrong. Not as good of a movie as Dr. Strangelove. But I enjoyed this performance of this double character, similar to the way I enjoyed Peter Sellers playing three characters in Dr. Strangelove. So overall, probably if I had to go with a star rating, as silly as those can be, maybe a 3.5 out of 5. Definitely, you should see it. If you're a John Ford fan, you definitely watch it, for sure. If you're someone who's watched a few of his movies and kind of wants to see more of his filmography, it's definitely worth seeing. If you're a screwball comedy fan of classic screwballs, you should definitely see it. If you like this actor, if you want to see him kind of break away from one of his like Little Caesar roles and you want to see this, okay. If you like Double Indemnity and you like his character in that, go ahead and see this if you like the actor. But yeah, you should watch it. It's a good one. What do you think? Have you seen it? Do you like it? Did you find that there was a little bit more clear of a purpose in the way the theme was presented than I did? I don't know. I'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed the video, if you wouldn't mind clicking like, that'd be great. Leave a comment, and we'll see you next time on Cody in the Cinema.